First, April marks Scottish American Heritage Month. The Highland Games and those famous plaid tartans might come to mind, but the Scots have a long-running history of battle and fighting for their freedoms, even here in the U.S.
As it turns out, Maine has a rich Scottish history, and we met some of the people working to preserve it and share it with others.
You've got to have pipes and drums, and that gets the blood going. Anybody who's got an ounce of Scottishness, for such a word, in their DNA, when you hear the pipes, if they're not ready for a fight, they need to go to a football match. They're in the wrong place.
The Highland Games are a Scottish tradition that date as far back as the 11th century and are not for the faint of heart. The contests, such as jumping, running, throwing, and riding, were first introduced as a way to select the strongest men for battle.
A royal charter was issued by the king that every year it should be celebrated. So as time went on and the idea of games developed into what it is just now, it still has the traditional things like heavy events. There used to be other things like athletics. There's even cycling in Fife now, but it changes geographically wherever you are. But the main recipe of the games is just the same. You've got
John Mann and James Rodden know a thing or two about the games. Mann established the Maine Ulster Scots, a nonprofit dedicated to uncovering Scots-Irish ties to Maine. Rodden is originally from Scotland and is the VP of the St. Andrew Society of Maine, an organization dedicated to preserving and promoting Scottish culture and heritage through education, outreach, scholarship, and performance. It's also the group behind Maine's only official Highland Games, which are held on the third Saturday of August every summer in Brunswick.
There's different disciplines. There's a hammer, there's a tossing the caber.
What's that?
Well, as you guys say, oh, is that when you throw the telegraph pole?
Yeah, one of those things.
A caber is a very huge telegraph pole-ish type object that you have to pick up at the bottom, lean on your shoulder, and get a point of balance.
Okay.
We're not even at the throwing stage yet. So you get the point of balance with this pole.
Huge piece of wood.
Yeah. So once you've got your point of balance, you've got to run and gain momentum so that when that is thrown properly, it will do one revolution like that and land.
At 12 o'clock?
Yes. Preferably like that, not like that, not like that, or not just not doing a revolution at all. It's not counted. There's also different types of weights that will be thrown over the bar, which you'll go back and forth between your leg and throw it up. Not a very good health and safety thing, but that's quite popular. And there's an awful lot of lady athletes that are very successful in that.
The games are a piece of Scottish American history most people have seen before. However, there are other parts people aren't so familiar with. Pieces Mann and Rodden say are vital to understanding Maine's connection to the Scots, more specifically the Dunbar Scots, who came to America in the mid-1600s.
The Battle of Worcester and the Battle of Dunbar both resulted in a large amount of Scottish prisoners. Many of them were marched overland into England and then auctioned off. Many of them were hung. Imagine so many of them died before they ever got sold because they were marched overland, many of them barefoot, most of them naked. They lived off whatever they could pull up beside the road to put in their mouths and eat. They died of dysentery, they died of disease. They were planted in mass graves. And the ones that were strong enough to survive all that were put on a prison ship and sent to New England. 2 different prison ships that came in, and they were sold to work in the ironworks in Saugus. They were sold to work in those sawmills in Berwick, Maine. Many of them were sold out to other various individuals. So they had left their family. Many of them none of them saw their family again, ever. They got put in prison. They got whipped at the stake. And when they worked off their indenture, they went on to found townships all up the coast of Maine. It's an incredible story. A story that's not written down hardly anywhere, but you will find it with us. We are documenting those stories. We are writing the books. We are holding the conferences and having lectures and bringing in experts, and we are becoming experts in order to tell our own story, which has never been written and told before.
Stories that Mann says not only highlight Maine's deep connection to the Scots, but give new generations a sense of belonging.
They find where their family went, we find our roots, and we become more whole as a people.
Yeah,
As
both ways.
individuals.
I believe it.
It's good stuff. We had an archaeologist come and work on an old cemetery that's connected with my family in Freeport, and she wrote a report about the people that were buried there. And she called it a testament to the grit and determination of the people the European people who came to Maine. And what I want people to understand is the grit and determination of the people that came before them, because we're challenged. Every generation is challenged by some great event, right? Mm-hmm. Where do you draw your inspiration from to face that and handle it and come out whole? Many people will not come out whole. They'll commit suicide. There'll be tragedies. Mm-hmm. But some people will come out whole with their head up high and proud. Where do you go to find that? You find that among our Scottish ancestors in spades. And you can draw from it and bring it into your life.
Now, Maine even has its own tartan, which is the traditional plaid cloth you see used for kilts and other things. The colors are light blue for the rivers, dark blue for the ocean, green for the forest, and red for the Scottish bloodline. And Mann and Rodden tell me the tartan tent is usually a pretty busy place at the Highland Games. A lot of people want to know what their families is. So.
I have not been to the Highland Games in Maine for a long time, but I'll tell you, tossing the caber really has to be seen to be believed.
Absolutely.
It's the craziest thing.